That's how gardening works, right? Science. Hey, it's Shannon, and welcome to our winter food forest. Let's have a tour. My husband and I live on 5 acres with our 3 dogs, and the garden space is only about 1,700 square feet of that. As you can see, we've fenced it off because we have a lot of deer pressure here. There's a family of about 2 to 3 deer at any given time. There's lots of babies coming through, and anything that we put outside of this fence will get eaten. So we've kind of split it up into a couple of different sections. We have like a food forest wild area along the length of the space, and then we have raised beds over here. I wanted to show you guys what our garden looks like in the wintertime because I think it's really easy to get sucked into the Instagram or the Pinterest type gardens that have fancy cedar beds and are always beautiful and green, when the reality is for a lot of us, especially those of us in zones 5 and 6 and lower, a lot of the times your garden's going to look like this. We've only been here for the last 2 years, and so we've put this entire garden in the last about year and a half, and most of it was made with things we just had lying around or things that we were able to pull together from things that were already on the property. These are made with plywood and lined with like plastic drop cloths, and stakes are logs that we cut from trees on the property, things like that. And last year, these were under about this much snow. So not every garden is always beautiful and green and lush. A lot of times it looks like this. So we'll take a look and see some of the things that we've got going on. This is a strawberry bed. I love this strawberry bed so much. Fresh strawberries are one of my favorite things, and I love them, and my dogs love them, and they make great smoothies. So I think that every garden should have strawberries. They're so easy to do. You can do it in a container on a balcony or a windowsill. They're the best. So right now we are in the annual part of the garden, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have 10 beds in this area, and they're all of varying heights and kind of different shapes just based on how it seemed to work out when we did it. This is the garden bean. The garden bean is our little helper in the garden. He loves it, and peas are his favorite. So whenever we have questions or need any help, we know where to go. One thing I did not do this year that I should have, I have not mulched these beds. And what one should do in the wintertime is mulch these really nice to keep all the nutrients in your soil. I did not do that. 2023 was a bit of a wreck of a year, so I did not do that, but I do have some compost coming in the spring that we're going to be able to use. So just in case you're wondering, gardens are not always perfect and glamorous. This started to collapse a little bit this year because this basil was so prolific. This holy basil this year really took off and loved being in this bed with all these tomatoes. I had like 8 tomatoes in here. I only had 6 cages, so they were jammed in here pretty good. I also had tomatoes on this side. A number of them were ground cherry tomatoes, which in hindsight I think is going to go in my not worth it for me plants. The investment in time to peel them and fuss with them was just more than was worth it for me. Our other dogs don't love that they don't get to be in here all the time as well. But this is tomato land in this whole area, and we may reorganize a little bit this spring. In February, March is really when I start planning what everything is going to look like out here. So that's kind of coming up. This is a butterfly bush that was originally on the side of our house, and I moved it over because we needed to be able to get through there with a truck at one point. And so now it lives here, and I'm really hoping it'll just take over and be giant on this side, but we'll see. It really depends on the watering situation. We don't have a drip system right now, so most of our watering comes from this big old sprinkler right here. So this is a rotating sprinkler. It really gets pretty much every part of the area that we've planted in up here, and then we have a second sprinkler down there. But I really encourage anyone who's gardening not to get caught up into the hype of you have to have a fancy drip system, you can't garden unless you have a very specific irrigation plan. We're just using sprinklers. These came out of my father's garage, so bless you, Bandito. So you don't need a fancy system. Sprinklers will absolutely work. Pretty much this whole area behind me is raspberries and herbs. I do have some sweet peas back here that would have to come down. We have rosemary back here. There's some lavender. Over here I have liatris. And then there's going to be some strawberries in through here as well. I have strawberry patches all over this place because I'm using strawberry as a primary ground cover. Mother Nature doesn't like bare dirt, and if you don't put something there, she will. So anything that you can do to cover that ground is going to be beneficial, so I'm using strawberry as a ground cover. We spent a lot of time last year putting wood chips all along the bottom of this whole area because we are amending the soil and bringing nutrients to it. It's too sandy all on its own, but adding wood chips immediately brings up those nutrients and it starts to break down and really give you a good soil to work with. So if you're just starting a garden, one of the best things you can do is to give yourself a leg up and start with good soil, and that's by adding wood chips. I grow a lot of medicinal herbs, so this area has a number of those. There's a couple different varieties of echinacea here, and these are fun because the seeds all live in these seed pod heads, and when you're ready to distribute them in the early or mid-fall, you just take the seeds out, drop them, and they self-propagate, which I really like to see. I also have yarrow, which has a ton of medicinal uses. We come this way. I have 2 different strawberry beds. These are traditional red strawberries. These are alpine strawberries. Alpine strawberries are not as productive, but they are still cool to have. They're like white and they have almost a tropical pineapple-y kind of flavor. So it's fun and different. There are 2 different kinds of blackberries here, a satin and a triple crown. The triple crown is much more productive at this moment in time, but they're both doing really well. And you can tell that it's been a warm season because they're both so green. I'm doing some guild planting with this apple tree. So this is a grafted apple tree. It's a combo. It has gala. What else does it have? Gala, Honeycrisp, gala and Honeycrisp are the primary ones. And then it also has one branch that's like a gold rush apples, so we'll get a good variety from this. We got 1 apple last year. It was our very first year, and I let 1 go and pulled the rest of the blossoms off so it could really focus on rooting. But we're doing some companion planting. I have some comfrey and borage in the ground here that sprouted last year, a ton of marigold going on down there, and some bee balm as well. And it just brings pollinators here and helps to get this going in the springtime. I do have to prune this, but I think I'm going to wait until next year to really do that. I want it to be pretty established before we go too nuts on that. So I have 2 kinds of blueberries here. One is a larger, more traditional blueberry type, and the other is a pink lemonade. These ones supposedly come in pink berries, and we only put these in last year, so I haven't seen them yet, but I'm very much hoping to see them. And Bean is probably very much hoping to eat them. Finally, down here we have raspberries. I have 6 red raspberries planted in a row here. Eventually they're going to grow up and over. I'm going to get a big trellis and it'll be like a raspberry arch. And then I just kind of filled it in with some fun stuff. So I've got some purple iris back there from my mother-in-law. And I have some Egyptian walking onions. I am so stoked about these. These are so cool because they grow up, the bulbs fall over, and they self-propagate themselves, which means that you're not replanting these every year. That's why they call them walking onions, because they're walking all over your property, which I really like. So I'm excited about these. This is a composter. It's just kind of a long game for us. We don't have a ton of really good soil here. We have sand instead of soil, and so we have to do a lot of soil amendments. And at the beginning, we had to bring in some topsoil, but we were hoping to be able to add our own compost. And so this, you just add your cuttings in. You can add a little bit of compost starter, and it just gives you a good base to start with. And it gives you somewhere to put some of those cuttings and things like that that you don't have anything else to do with. Mother Nature has seasons, and our garden does too. And I think that we can learn a lot from it in really emulating our lives that way. We don't give ourselves enough credit for getting through winter the way that we do. There's a lot less sunlight in our area. It gets dark at about 4:30 at night, and it feels like your day's a lot shorter. And that's because it is. In the wintertime, Mother Nature, there are different systems at work, and there are different things that are activated and some things are at rest. And so should we be. I think that we can learn a lot from the ways that nature allows itself to take this time to rest and work on different things. You might not be as productive in the growth sense. You might not be growing new shoots or growing new fruits, but maybe you are amending your soil. Maybe you are working on building a solid foundation for next year. And so that's something that I think I definitely need to learn how to take away from it. What do we think, Bean? Garden Bean approves. Garden Bean says it's time to go inside. So here's to that, and here's to manifesting magic in your own life.